All right, let's dive right in. We're going to explore some really fascinating research that tackles one of the biggest questions in AI today, and that is, how on earth do you teach a machine to make sense of our chaotic, noisy, constantly changing world? We're about to go on a journey that connects the way we speak to how ships find their way on the ocean, all of it guided by a single really smart approach to machine learning.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Our world is just this nonstop flood of information, right? Sights, sounds, you name it. For you and me, our brains just filter it. It's second nature. But for a machine, that's a huge, huge challenge. How does it find the important signal inside all that noise? How does it pull out clean, structured information from messy, real-world data? This is one of the absolute core problems that AI researchers are working on right now.
And our guide for this explainer is a doctoral thesis by Ajinkya Gorad that goes deep on this exact problem. You can think of it as a quest to find a common set of tools that can help machines interpret our world, no matter what kind of data you throw at them. So let's start by looking at the very different worlds this research connects. Now, here's what makes this research so compelling. It doesn't just solve one little problem. It takes on the same fundamental challenge, making sense of noisy, time-based data, but applies it across three completely different and complex domains: understanding human speech, monitoring our health, and believe it or not, navigating ships safely on the open ocean. So breaking it down, the work looks at three key areas. First, using these really cool brain-inspired networks to understand the tiny nuances in our voices. Second, using thermal cameras to watch breathing patterns without any physical contact. And third, using a whole suite of sensors, sound, light, thermal, to help ships see and hear what's around them, especially when conditions get dangerous. Three very different applications, but as you're about to see, they're all linked by the same core computational strategy. So let's get into the first big idea, which sounds like something out of science fiction, using what are basically liquid brains to recognize speech. This is where we dive into the world of spiking neural networks and this incredible concept called the liquid state machine.
Okay, what's so cool about this is the analogy. The whole concept is modeled on our own brains. When a sound hits your ear, it gets turned into electrical spikes. Those spikes then zip over to your auditory cortex, which is this super complex, tangled network of neurons. The spikes create these ripples of activity. Seriously, it's like dropping a pebble in a pond. And the pattern of those ripples holds a memory of the sound as it changes over time. This network, this liquid, basically transforms messy sound waves into something much simpler that your brain can easily recognize as words. So here's the key takeaway. A liquid state machine, or LSM, is a computer model that tries to copy that exact process. It's this big, randomly connected network of artificial neurons that are designed to act like real brain cells. You can think of it as a reservoir that can process really complex, changing inputs, like speech. The whole idea is that the rich, dynamic activity inside this reservoir makes the hidden patterns in the data way easier to spot.
But okay, here's the massive catch. These networks have a ton of different knobs you can tune. You know, how strong the connections are, what kind of neurons you use, and so on. Trying to find the right settings is usually just a painful process of trial and error. You want the network to be active enough to create these useful complex patterns, but not so active that it just descends into total chaos. So how do you find that perfect sweet spot, what they call the edge of chaos, without spending forever just guessing?
This is where the thesis introduces a major breakthrough. See, the old way of trying to predict performance used this complicated metric from chaos theory. All you need to know is that it basically just measures how chaotic the network is. But it's not a very good predictor because eventually more chaos leads to worse performance, but the metric just keeps going up. The new way is a memory metric. It's a super simple, computationally cheap way to measure the useful memory of the network. Basically, how long information sticks around in that reservoir before it fades away.
And this visual just shows it all perfectly. Look at chart A on the left. That's the actual accuracy of the network, with the best performance shown in that bright red ridge. Now look at chart B, which shows the new memory metric. It's almost a perfect mirror image. The red ridge of high performance lines up exactly. Now compare that to the old metric in chart C. It completely misses the sweet spot. This new metric is basically a treasure map for finding the best performing networks.
And the practical benefit here is just enormous. Instead of running a full, slow simulation for every single set of parameters, you can just calculate this simple metric. Get this, it's about 1,800 times faster. It turns a process that could take hours into something that takes just a few seconds. That is a total game changer for designing these complex networks efficiently.
Okay, so this new metric is a hugely powerful tool for designing these networks. Now, let's see how these same ideas about processing messy data apply in a totally different world. We're leaving the abstract world of neural networks and we are heading out to the high seas. We're making sense of what you see and hear can literally be a matter of life and death.
For centuries, sailors have known that sound at sea is incredibly unreliable. This quote perfectly captures the danger of these so-called silent zones, where you can hear a foghorn, then it just vanishes, and then suddenly it comes back. In thick fog, when you can't see a thing, relying only on your ears can be incredibly dangerous. This makes it the perfect test for smarter sensory processing.
So what's the solution? Well, even with all our modern radar and GPS, ships are still required to have foghorns as a backup. The research here proposes this brilliant mix of old and new. Use a modern array of microphones and some really smart algorithms to listen for that old-school foghorn signal. It gives you another source of information that works even when other systems might be failing or just can't spot a smaller boat.
And the results are seriously impressive. During tests out in the Gulf of Finland, the system was able to figure out the direction of another ship just from its foghorn sound with an accuracy of 7 degrees from over 3 kilometers away. That's a powerful proof of concept, adding a whole new layer of hearing to a ship's awareness. So, we've done a deep dive into brain-inspired speech recognition, and we've seen a real-world test on the open ocean. They seem like totally separate things, right? So what's the big idea that actually connects them? Well, this brings us to the core conclusion of the entire work.
The real breakthrough here isn't just one solution for speech and another one for ships. It's the creation of a unified toolkit. These flexible machine learning methods aren't just for one thing. They represent a general approach, a shared strategy that you can apply to almost any kind of changing sensory data, whether it's the sound waves of a human voice or the audio and visual signals a ship uses to navigate.
And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. The whole point of this research, and really so much of modern AI, is to build smarter, more aware machines. We're talking about machines that aren't just programmed with rigid rules, but can actually learn to robustly interpret the messy, noisy, and beautiful complexity of the world around us. So, this work gives us a powerful toolkit for the senses of hearing and sight. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If we can teach machines to reliably understand what they see and hear, what human sense comes next? And what will they be able to perceive once they've mastered them all?